British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has taken to the airwaves to defend and reiterate the message that we heard from Prime Minister Theresa May on Saturday, laying out why it was essential for Britain to join France and the United States in those targeted strikes against suspected chemical weapons sites inside of Syria. Boris Johnson said there were no further plans for military strikes or action in Syria at the moment. However, if there were further chemical attacks committed by the government side of President Bashar al-Assad, then the Allies would look at their options again.
There's one overwhelming reason why this was the right thing to do, and that is to deter the use of chemical weapons, not just by the Assad regime, but around the world. And I think one of the most distressing things about the events of the last few years has been the growth, the contemptuous growth in the use of chemical weapons in the Syrian theatre of conflict. And you can imagine that people around the world are looking now and saying, well, finally, someone stood up against that.
Prime Minister Theresa May has been facing a barrage of political opposition for committing those military forces without a parliamentary vote. Legally, she's not required to. However, it has been customary since the 2003 war with Iraq. She is going to be back in Parliament in the House of Commons on Monday, laying out again the reasons for this decision. The British public rather nervous about any kind of foreign military entanglements after that 2003 war with Iraq, and only 22% of people, the polls show, actually support these strikes with Syria. So here's a taste of why the British public is perhaps rather nervous about this.
My real concern is that the Prime Minister has committed British forces to attacking a sovereign state, and she's based it on questionable intelligence. And it's almost a reprise of what happened with Iraq.
On the other side of the English Channel in France, President Emmanuel Macron is also facing political criticism. He's being accused of going along with Donald Trump and not displaying France's usual independence streak. Of course, France was not involved in that 2003 war in Iraq. He's facing criticism ahead of this state visit he's due to make to the United States in about 9 days' time.
We convinced President Trump that it was necessary to remain in Syria, and I think that on a diplomatic level, we convinced him that we needed to remain in the long term.
So both Theresa May and President Emmanuel Macron facing domestic political debates which look set to continue, even though the military strikes for now in Syria are over. Paul Barber, CGTN, London.